Order. I now call Minister Michael Gove to make a statement. Secretary Gove.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I'd like to update the House and indeed the people of Northern Ireland on the implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol as part of the withdrawal agreement with the European Union. Throughout 2020, we've worked intensively to ensure that the withdrawal agreement, in particular the Northern Ireland Protocol, will be fully operational on the 1st of January 2021. Our aims and the proportionate and pragmatic way that we intended to pursue them were set out in the command paper that we published in May, the UK's approach to the Northern Ireland Protocol. This set out three key commitments that we believed needed to be respected in all scenarios. We had to ensure that Northern Ireland businesses retained unfettered access to the rest of the UK market. Northern Ireland's place in the UK's customs territory had to be protected, and that meant that goods that stayed in the UK were not subject to tariffs. And we had to ensure that the important Great Britain-Northern Ireland trade flows, on which lives and livelihoods depend, were not disrupted. We needed to ensure a smooth flow of trade with no need for new physical customs infrastructure. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say that on Monday, the European Commission Vice President, Maroš Šefčovič, and I, as co-chairs of the Joint Committee set up to negotiate the implementation of the protocol, came to an agreement in principle on a deal which meets all of those commitments and puts the people of Northern Ireland first. So I'd like to begin by paying tribute to Maroš Šefčovič and his team for their pragmatism and their collaborative spirit and their determination to get a deal done that would work for both sides. And I'd also like to thank the First Minister, the Deputy First Minister and all the members of the Northern Ireland Executive for their crucial intervention at significant moments in order to ensure that the rights of the people of Northern Ireland were protected. Turning now to the first government commitment, this deal protects unfettered access for Northern Ireland businesses to their most important market. And as the Prime Minister underlined, this had to be protected in full. And that meant removing any prospect of export declarations for Northern Ireland goods moving from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. And that's what our agreement will do. There will be no additional requirements placed on Northern Ireland businesses for these movements, with a very limited and specific exception of trade in endangered species and conflict diamonds. On the second commitment, Mr. Speaker, the deal safeguards Northern Ireland's place in the UK's customs territory. As recently as July, the Commission had envisaged a default tariff scenario in which, and I quote, all goods brought into Northern Ireland would consider to be at risk and are, as such, subject to the common customs tariff. If that had been implemented, that would have raised the prospect of a 58% tariff on a pint of milk going from Scotland to a supermarket in Strabane, or 96% on a bag of sugar going from Liverpool to the shops of Belfast. As we've repeatedly made clear, this could never have been an acceptable outcome. So instead, I'm pleased to say that under the agreement that we've reached, Northern Ireland businesses selling to consumers or using goods in Northern Ireland will be free of all tariffs, whether that's Nissan cars from Sunderland or lamb from Montgomeryshire. Internal UK trade will be protected as we promised, whether we have a free trade agreement with the EU or not. And third, Mr. Speaker, this deal would keep goods flowing between Great Britain and Northern Ireland in January and indeed provide some necessary additional flexibilities. It protects Northern Ireland's supermarket supplies. We heard throughout the year that traders needed time to adapt their systems. That's why we've got a grace period for supermarkets to update their procedures. And our agreement also prevents any disruption at the end of the transition period on the movement of chilled meats. British sausages will continue to make their way to Belfast and Ballymena in the new year. And we've also got time for reciprocal agreements between the UK and the EU on agri-food, which can be discussed in the months ahead. This deal also protects the flow of medicines and vet medicines into Northern Ireland. This means that we'll grant industry a period of up to 12 months to adapt to new rules under the protocol. So this will avoid any disruption to critical medical supplies. So three commitments entered into, three commitments that we have upheld. But this agreement also goes further still, providing additional flexibility that will enable us to make the most of the opportunities that face us as the transition period ends. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this House has been concerned about the risk of so-called reach-back from the state aid provisions that the protocol applies. The concern that many colleagues had was that a company in Great Britain with only a peripheral link to commercial operations in Northern Ireland could be caught inadvertently by the tests within the protocol's text. That would not have been acceptable, nor was it what the protocol had envisaged. That's why I'm pleased that the agreement we have addresses that risk. It means that firms in Great Britain stay outside state aid rules where there is no genuine and direct link to Northern Ireland and no real foreseeable impact on Northern Ireland EU trade. It's an important step forward dealing with an issue raised by a number of honourable and honourable members across this House. Also, this deal ensures that Northern Ireland will be out of the Common Agricultural Policy, which means that the Northern Ireland Executive have full freedom to set their own agricultural subsidies for Northern Ireland's farmers. It also means appropriate and flexible arrangements, which mean that more than £400 million of spending each year is totally exempt from state aid rules. As well as this, the deal ensures that support for fishermen in Northern Ireland will also be exempt from EU state aid rules, and that means more than £15 million of flexibility for Northern Ireland's fishermen over the next 5 years. And of course, Northern Ireland's services industries are totally outside the scope of the protocol and its state aid measures. The agreement also respects the protocol provisions which were endorsed by Parliament that allow some EU officials to be present at Northern Ireland ports as UK authorities carry out our own procedures. And let me be clear, there'll be no Belfast mini-embassy or mission, as some in the EU originally sought, and the EU officials will not have any powers to carry out checks themselves. There will instead be sensible, practical arrangements, cooperation, reciprocal data sharing, so that both sides can have confidence in these unique arrangements. And we also want to leave no doubt about our ongoing commitment to peace and prosperity in Northern Ireland. My right honourable friend, the Northern Ireland Secretary, will set out in the coming days further measures of financial support to help businesses and communities to prosper and thrive from the end of the year and beyond. And, Mr. Speaker, we've been able to deliver a package which now means that the protocol can be implemented in a pragmatic and a proportionate way. It takes account of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement in all of its dimensions, and it protects the interests both of the EU single market, but more importantly, the territorial and constitutional integrity of the whole United Kingdom. Now, this agreement will be approved officially at a joint committee meeting in the coming days. And of course, this agreement that we've reached also enables the government to withdraw clauses 44, 45 and 47 of the UK Internal Market Bill and avoids the need for any additional provisions in the taxation bill. Having put beyond doubt the primacy of the sovereignty of this place as we leave the EU, we rest safe in the knowledge that such provisions are no longer required. We know that we now need to get on and give further clarity to business as to the specifics of what this deal means for them and how it will work in detail in practice. And we will do this through the publication of further guidance. And that will sit along the ongoing intensive work that we will take forward to implement the protocol. But above all, Mr. Speaker, we will always work with the interests of the people and businesses of Northern Ireland in mind, as this agreement and the important flexibilities it will provide reflects. Because we must all remember, if the protocol is to work, it must work for the whole community in Northern Ireland. And whether it is to be maintained in the future, as the protocol itself sets out, is for the people of Northern Ireland to decide through the democratic consent mechanism that my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, negotiated. And on that critical, important note of the primacy of democracy, I recommend this statement to the House.
We come to Shadow Secretary Rachel Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for advance sight of the statement from the right honourable gentleman this afternoon. We welcome the statement and are pleased that decisions have been reached on the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Good Friday Agreement is a source of immense pride on this side of the House, given the role that Tony Blair's Labour government played in building on the work of Sir John Major in achieving it. Neither of those governments would play games with the peace process, and neither would a government led by my right honourable friend, the member for Holborn and St Pancras. Because game playing, with threats to break international law, has consequences, and it is also a dangerous distraction. The Agriculture Department in Northern Ireland say that the border infrastructure simply won't be ready in time, and Manufacturing NI say just 9% of businesses in Northern Ireland are ready for the end of the transition period. And the systems needed to make trade flow, such as the Trader Support Service, reportedly won't even be going live until December the 21st, 8 working days before the end of the transition period. Mr. Speaker, this really does give new meaning to the night before Christmas. Last December, the Prime Minister told this House, "We're a UK government. Why would we put checks on goods NI to GB or GB to NI. It doesn't make sense. So with that in mind, could the Minister explain why today's documents confirm that for trade from GB to NI, there will indeed be a range of checks, and indeed the Trusted Trader Scheme will be removed after 3.5 years and reviewed then, with further uncertainty at that point. And indeed the exemption of agri-food checks are only available for 3 months. So can the Minister tell us what guarantees there are with prices and availability of fresh food supplies in Northern Ireland after the 1st of April? And will custom checks be required just 3 months into 2021? And this all begs the question, Mr. Speaker, did the Prime Minister actually know what he had signed up to last year and then give false assurances to this House, or did he simply not care? This is a disgraceful way to treat businesses in good times, never mind in the middle of a pandemic. Turning to the trade deal needed for Northern Ireland and for Great Britain too, we are told that the level playing field remains an outstanding area of disagreement. Yet the Prime Minister's political declaration that he signed with the EU spoke of a future relationship with open and fair competition, encompassing robust commitments to ensure a level playing field. Now, I know that some Conservative MPs are agitated by the idea of a floor on workers' rights. Indeed, no less than 3 cabinet ministers jointly wrote a book that said that British workers are amongst the worst idlers in the world. Well, Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House do not agree with that statement, and neither do the people of our country, who want to see more security at work, not less. And there are some siren voices on the government benches who appear to view any agreement with the European Union as a betrayal. Mr. Speaker, the Minister should know that the true betrayal would be job losses, border chaos and price rises in our shops. Now, the Minister referred to cars from Nissan and lamb exports from Wales, and that they will be tariff-free in Northern Ireland. But as he knows, they need to be tariff-free with the EU too. Now, we on this side of the House, we want the negotiations to succeed. We want the government to keep its promises and come back with the oven-ready deal that we were promised at the general election less than a year ago. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, sometimes it feels that we on this side of the House want the government to succeed and bring back this deal more than those on the government's own backbenches do. But deal or no deal, there are preparations that still need to be made for Northern Ireland and for Great Britain too. And Mr. Speaker, I want to ask again about customs agents, because just minutes ago, the Prime Minister didn't seem to have any answers on how many there are. But earlier in the year, the Right Honourable Gentleman agreed with industry estimates of 50,000 customs agents needed. Since then, he's told the BBC that the number had increased fourfold, but, Mr. Speaker, he omitted to tell us what the actual figure was. So let's give the Right Honourable Gentleman another chance. How many customs agents are in place, and are we ready for the end of the transition period? And, Mr. Speaker, it's not just me asking these questions. Richard Burnett, the Chief Executive of the Road Haulage Association, says the big issues that we face is that there are insufficient customs agents, and that without this and the correct paperwork, we are likely to see vehicles being turned around, and that's going to create significant chaos and significant queues. And turning to lorry parks, can the Minister tell us how many inland border facilities are ready, and will they ensure the free flow of lorries and vehicles from the 1st of January? And can the Minister guarantee this House that there will be no disruption to medical or food supplies from the 1st of January? Mr. Speaker, ours is a great country, and Labour wants to see a good life for all our people. But as great as our country is, it cannot afford to be afflicted by government incompetence. Every price rise, every traffic jam, every lost contract and every redundancy caused by this government's mistakes and poor planning holds our great country back. Next year must be a year of rebuilding and recovering from COVID-19, not dealing with the fallout of reckless decision-makings, tariffs or incompetence. So this is decision time for this government, and it is time to get the deal.
Gove.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for the warm welcome that she gave to this agreement. I also thank her for the kind words that she offered Sir John Major The process of concluding the Good Friday Agreement, as she quite rightly reminds us, was a signal achievement of Tony Blair's government, but was also achieved as a result of hard work across this House. And of course, there has been, since the Good Friday Agreement was concluded, 2 years of progress in Northern Ireland, and it's important that we seek to underpin and secure that. She asked about border infrastructure. Let me emphasise this border infrastructure is there to ensure that sanitary and phytosanitary checks can be made. As she knows, as the House knows, it's already the case that the Island of Ireland is a single epidemiological zone, and therefore when live animals move from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, there are physical checks. There will be border facilities in order to ensure that these limited and proportionate SPS checks can be carried out at the port of Foyle, Warren Point, Belfast and Larne, and we've reassured the Commission and indeed others about the speed and effectiveness with which the necessary limited infrastructure will be in place. She also asked about the Trader Support Service, which is there to help Northern Ireland businesses. I'm pleased that we spend over £200 million in order to support Northern Ireland businesses, and I think it's the case that more than 10,000 businesses are now signed up to the Trader Support Service in order to ensure that they will incur no costs as a result of the protocol. She also asked about the future of the Trusted Trader Scheme, which, as she quite rightly points out, guarantees that goods being sold in Northern Ireland and businesses operating in Northern Ireland will face no tariffs. It is the case that we will have an opportunity to review how that scheme operates, but it is only the case that if there is a demonstrable diversion or illegal activity that it will need to be reviewed, and in those circumstances there is an obligation on both parties to seek alternative arrangements. And I should stress again, there are no additional customs checks which will be facing goods that go from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. She asked about customs agent capacity overall. It is the case that £84 million has been made available in order to increase capacity, and the latest survey by HMRC shows that there's been a four-fold increase in capacity. Of course, one of the reasons why we're phasing in import controls over 6 months next year is in order to ensure that the sector can increase even further, but that four-fold increase in capacity gives us confidence that we need that all the staff will be there. She mentioned Richard Burnett of the Road Haulage Association. Mr Burnett, along with Dave Wells of Logistics UK and other figures in the haulage and logistics industry, have played an invaluable role in making sure that government does everything necessary to prepare, but I've never shirked from saying that more needs to be done. She asked about the level playing field and workers' rights. We have a proud tradition of upholding workers' rights and ensuring that we have social and environmental protections in this country higher than in many other European countries. That will not change. That is a source of pride. But one thing we can't accept in the course of the level playing field negotiations is the demand from some in the EU that if the EU adopts new laws, that we would automatically have to follow those laws or face penalties. We're not afraid to say that our standards are high and we will uphold them. But we're also not afraid to say the people of this country voted to take back control, and that is what this government will do.
William Wright.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol has become my right honourable friend's equivalent of the Schleswig-Holstein question, given the varieties of interpretations that surround it. But fundamentally, does what my right honourable friend agreed yesterday make it more or less likely that a free trade agreement with the European Union that crucially ensures the United Kingdom's sovereignty in its entirety can be secured?
I thank the Chairman of the Select Committee for his question. I think it was Palmerston who said that there were only 3 people who knew the answer to the Schleswig-Holstein question. One was dead, the other one was mad, and he himself had forgotten what the answer was. But on the Northern Ireland Protocol, there are all sorts of honourable and right honourable members in this House who have played a part in making sure that we can indeed secure Northern Ireland's constitutional future within the UK and ensure that we leave the European Union as one country whole and entire.
Let's head up to Scotland with Pete Wishart. Pete Wishart.
And thank you once again, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the Chancellor for his statement. It's one of these statements which I suppose is good news until you actually see the scale of the Brexit horrors that are now just in front of us. We're now at the stage with the chaotic Brexit that we have a sort of Schrodinger's deal, one that's sort of there but also not. I don't know if he's actually come here today looking for some sort of congratulations and well done for all this. I suppose it's a well done for taking us all to the very brink with the very worst of negotiation statecraft and what was supposed to be the easiest deal in the world. A well done for the emerging chaos at our ports and businesses taking flight, or maybe even a well done for in a few weeks denying our young people the right to live, work and love freely across a continent. And tonight we're going to have the Last Supper, but we know it will be the British people who will be crucified. And yes, what Northern Ireland's got is great for them. Best of both worlds is a phrase that we in Scotland are pretty much familiar with. It's what we were promised in 2014. Now in 2020, we are faced with the worst of all worlds. So we would give a right arm for access to the EU single market and unfettered access across the rest of the UK market. So can he explain to the Scottish people exactly why Scotland is the only part of the United Kingdom that will not get any part of what they voted for in Brexit?
Secretary Gove.
Well, I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman once again for his questions. They're masterpieces of metaphorical concatenation. He managed to bring in both Schrödinger's cat and the Easter and Passiontide narrative before he eventually got to his question. And I think it was a masterpiece, as I say, of lyrical concision, which we would expect from Runrig's principal star. But on the basic question, it is the case he recognises, as I recognise, that Northern Ireland has a unique position within the United Kingdom as a result of having a land border with the European Union, which no other part of the United Kingdom does, and that requires specific arrangements. But whatever those specific arrangements, it is the case that Northern Ireland, by the will of its people, remains part of the United Kingdom. Long may it remain so. Sir
William Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much agree with what the Prime Minister said today at Prime Minister's questions. Does the Chancellor also agree, and is there anything in his own statement which would be allowed to undermine the unfettered sovereignty of the United Kingdom as asserted by successive democratic votes in the referendum, successive acts of Parliament, Section 30 and Section 38 of the 2020 Act? And would he also confirm today to appear before the European Scrutiny Committee, which, as he knows, he has declined to do so on at least 3 occasions, most recently on the 26th of November, which we put to him in writing, but so far he hasn't been able to come. Will he please commit now, today, to coming to before the committee as soon as possible, right now?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the first part, my right honourable friend is absolutely right. Section 38 of the Act which gave effect to the withdrawal agreement upheld the sovereignty of this place, and there is nothing in what we have concluded that in any way diverges from that. On the second question, I'm very sorry that I've played hard to get, but I'll make sure that we can have a date before Christmas when the two of us can meet in suitably COVID-compliant surroundings.
To the Select Committee, Hilary Benn.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Right Honourable Gentleman's statement because it shows what can be achieved with political commitment, and I do hope we will see more of that later on today. However, he seems to have brought back not a permanent arrangement, but a series of grace periods, and I want to ask him about that. For example, it's been reported that food products coming from GB into Northern Ireland will be exempt from export health certificates for a period of at least 3 months, and chilled meat, sausages he referred to, will be allowed for a period of time pending a review, after which they might be prevented anymore from moving from GB to Northern Ireland. So what is going to happen after those dates, and how exactly a business is going to be able to prepare when they haven't yet seen the detailed arrangements, because the Joint Committee isn't going to meet for a couple of days, and when those details may well change in a few months' time yet again?
Secretary.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for his questions, and indeed the work of his committee, which has helped us as we've sought to resolve these issues. And his welcome is very, very welcome. On the detailed points that he makes, we've been talking to traders, supermarkets in particular, in order to make sure that they're ready for any export health certificate requirements. And we know that some supermarkets are already ready. 1 or 2 others need time in order to get ready. They requested a grace period. Originally, those in the Commission argued that that would be impossible, or if it did exist, it could only be a matter of weeks. We managed to secure 3 months, which is sufficient time, we understand, in order to ensure that supermarkets are ready. On the chilled meat provision, it is the case that we have secured a 6-month period during which there will be absolutely no change. Again, it was the case that there were some in the EU who argued that that should be a strictly non-renewable provision. We secured an approach which meant that we could keep under review how things were operating in order to ensure that we provided people in Northern Ireland with access to the food that they currently enjoy without any disruption to the integrated supply chains that supermarkets have and which they will adjust.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of the life science and other businesses of South Cambridgeshire export to Northern Ireland. Can my right honourable friend reassure them that they won't face any new bureaucratic obstacles or tariffs as they sell their goods and services there?
Well, my honourable friend is a brilliant advocate for the life science sector, and I know that it provides jobs and investment in Cambridgeshire and beyond. It's also the case that there is a thriving life science and pharmaceutical sector in Northern Ireland, and it will be the case that there are no impediments to the continued successful integration of that work.
Christine Jarvis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The right honourable gentleman and I have known each other for many years, and while we might have differed on Brexit, there is another issue in Scotland in which we are very much in agreement. Can the right honourable gentleman assure us today that every effort will be made to ensure that this agreement, good as it is for Northern Ireland, is not used to undermine Scotland's position within the Union, and that my constituents in Edinburgh West and elsewhere might benefit from the same sort of phasing in agreement as has been agreed for Northern Ireland?
Well, I've known the Honourable Lady, she says, for a few years, and she's a brilliant MP, and she's absolutely right. I don't think, the Honourable Lady opposite said that people shouldn't play politics with the Good Friday Agreement. I don't think they should. And I think it's important to recognise that Northern Ireland is in a unique position within the UK. I think the majority of people in Scotland and across the UK recognise that. But it's also important, she's absolutely right, that in our arrangements with the EU we take specific account of the needs that Scotland has. And everything from the provision of seasonal agricultural workers to making sure that we can expedite fish and shellfish from the North East to the EU, to indeed the principal position that my right honourable friend, the President of the Board of Trade, is taking on whisky exports. It's absolutely important we recognise that Scotland has distinct needs, and that working with the Scottish Government and Scottish MPs like herself, we can advance Scotland's interests.
Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does my right honourable friend agree that the EU's request for a mini-embassy in Northern Ireland was inflammatory for communities in Northern Ireland and is not required to allow the EU to supervise processes carried out by UK authorities?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. There were some in the EU who wanted to sort of mount a sort of land grab, as it were, and to have a part of Northern Ireland that was forever Brussels. But it is the case that what we have agreed is a pragmatic approach, which means that the EU, quite rightly, can have people in Northern Ireland so that it can be assured that the UK officials who are carrying out our own sovereign procedures are doing so in a way in which everyone can have confidence. And I want again to place on record my thanks to the Vice President, Maros Šefčovič, for making sure that it was pragmatic arrangements rather than symbolism that won through.
Sir Geoffrey Dawes.
I know that the right honourable gentleman is as passionate as I am about the Union. And Article 6 of the Act of Union states very clearly there should be no barrier to trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland as is now. And Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol also makes clear, Mr. Speaker, that if this protocol leads to serious economic, societal or environmental difficulties that are liable to persist, the United Kingdom Government may unilaterally take appropriate safeguard measures. Safeguarding the Union is not a 3-month, 6-month or 3-year project, Mr. Speaker. It is an enduring commitment. Will the Chancellor now give a commitment that, if necessary, the Government will introduce safeguard measures to ensure unfettered access in both directions for trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland?
Mr. Gove.
Well, the right honourable gentleman makes a very important point in drawing attention to a very important provision within the Northern Ireland Protocol. And, of course, the Government came under some criticism from some for having provisions in the UK Internal Market Bill which upheld the sovereignty of this place in order to uphold the constitutional and territorial integrity of the United Kingdom. We no longer need to use those provisions because of the agreement that we've reached. But he's absolutely right. Of course, that provision remains. But I hope it will be the case that through patient and pragmatic discussion that we can resolve any future issues in the way that we've resolved existing issues.
Dr. Liam Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do congratulate my right honourable friend on reaching his agreement in principle, which shows that Britain is willing to make constructive compromises. Can he tell us, as it now stands, is there any part of the withdrawal agreement that requires direct application of EU law to any part of the United Kingdom?
Yes, it is the case that as a result of some of the provisions within the Northern Ireland Protocol, that it will be the case that there will be a requirement on some businesses and in Northern Ireland specifically to follow the acquis, and that is one of the ways in which we can ensure that there is no need for border infrastructure between Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Let's head to Wales with Howell Williams. Howell Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We welcome yesterday's agreement. We want for Northern Ireland just what we want for Wales, unfettered access to our most important markets with the rest of the UK and, of course, with the EU. But the fundamentals of trade, particularly between Wales and Northern Ireland, and indeed the Republic of Ireland, remain uncertain. Hauliers fear serious disruption on the Holyhead-Dublin route, with the Welsh Government's plans revealed on Monday for contraflows and parking lots being too little too late. What steps has he taken to lessen this potential disruption?
Minister Gove.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Gentleman for his question. I know that because of the geographical proximity of his constituency to Ynysmon, to the island of Anglesey, he has a particular concern. But it is the case that we've been working well with the Welsh Government, and I want to thank in particular their Council General Jeremy Miles in order to make sure that we will have infrastructure in Holyhead, which can ensure that the second busiest roll-on roll-off port in the United Kingdom continues to prosper.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I just point out to my right honourable friend that whatever he agreed in the joint committee yesterday remains subject to the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice under the disputes procedure. And moreover, whatever he agreed yesterday was only agreed because we had the clauses of the UKIM bill which were threatening to block the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. Will he agree with me that it's very important that we maintain the position that this House can at any time put blocks in front of the European Court of Justice while this withdrawal agreement remains in force?
Well, my right honourable friend is right. This House is sovereign, and it's as a result of, obviously, of bringing forward the UK Internal Market Bill. I understand some of the unease and controversy that it generated, but he's absolutely right that following on from that, we were able to make progress, and we are now no longer in a position where we need to bring forward those clauses. But of course, it's the sovereign right of this Parliament to legislate as it thinks fit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister. We welcome details that businesses have sought anxiously all year, and of course we keenly anticipate a wider trade deal that might finally allow us to enjoy the conditions that we currently enjoy. Can I ask how he proposes to ensure continuity of supply for squeezed Northern Ireland households to have choice and affordability after mitigations on export health certificates expire in 6 months?
Minister Gove.
Well, it is the case that we've been working with supermarkets and with other traders in order to ensure that their supply lines and the current provision and indeed in the future, I hope, enhanced provision of all the goods that consumers in Northern Ireland currently enjoy can remain. And it is the case that the Trader Support Service is there, alongside other support that we're giving to businesses in Northern Ireland, indeed businesses across the UK, to make sure that a fully integrated part of the UK internal market enjoys the same access to the same goods as the rest of us.
Malcolm Longley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can my right honourable friend assure me and all of my Dudley North constituents that should we strike a trade agreement with the EU, that we will not compromise in any way on our fishing waters, our borders and our laws, and, may I add, most importantly, that any governance arrangements that may flow from any trade agreement are completely consistent with those of a fully sovereign country.
Minister Gove.
My honourable friend is bang on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish we were in a different place where we didn't need the protocol to be in place. But I do want to recognise the progress that has been made through this provisional agreement. But could I ask the Chancellor to recognise that there is a range of unfinished business in relation to protecting the Northern Ireland economy, including issues such as transit from Great Britain via the Republic of Ireland into Northern Ireland, access to EU free trade agreements, particularly for our agri-food and dairy sector, issues around data adequacy, and also the protection of the service sector on an all-island basis?
Mr. Gove.
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman's points, and he is right. There is important work that is still to be done. As I think he noted, it is the case that the services sector in Northern Ireland is totally exempt from any state aid provisions, but it is also the case that Northern Ireland has benefited from commercial links with the Irish Republic, as well as its strong position within the UK internal market, and there is more work that does require to be done in order to strengthen Northern Ireland's formidable competitive position.
Mark Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The good people of my Workington constituency stand squarely behind my right honourable friend and Lord Frost in the negotiations. Can he confirm that with this agreement on the protocol in place, the UK will leave the transition period at the end of this month, regardless of whether we reach an agreement with the EU or not?
Mr. Gove.
Yep, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Whatever happens, and we do hope that we get a free trade agreement, we will leave the customs union and the single market on December the 31st.
Let's head to Barry Sherman. Barry Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will be aware, I hope he's aware, that many of us will be feeling very sad if his career will end in failure if we don't get an agreement with the European Union today or very soon. But could I also say to him that as a member of the Committee on the Future Relationship with Europe, I recently, with my colleagues, listened to leaders of the Northern Ireland business community, manufacturing and farming community. They don't happen to think everything is fully operational. They don't think anything is oven ready. And if it were in the oven, it will be pretty thin pickings. Could he please, at this late stage, make every effort to make sure that we get a deal rather than leaving without a deal?
Minister.
I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman for his words. We will do everything possible that we can to get a deal, but it can't be a deal at any price. As for his point about my career ending in failure, my career, I'm afraid, has been marked by failure consistently in so many ways. And often in politics I'm reminded of the words of Winston Churchill, that success means going from failure to failure with undiminished enthusiasm, and that's what I hope to do.
Maroon cakes.
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his statement and careers advice? Of course, I warmly welcome the news of this significant progress, but can my right honourable friend reassure the House that whilst the Government has said that it will withdraw clauses 44, 45 and 47 of the UK Internal Market Bill, the rest of the bill will remain in place so that we can ensure that goods can move seamlessly across the UK, benefiting businesses and consumers across all 4 nations?
Mr. Gove.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. The UK Internal Market Bill is an absolutely critical piece of legislation which safeguards the rights of producers and consumers across the UK. The clauses she mentioned excited controversy. I think that they were necessary, but in any case, that controversy can now pass because they're being withdrawn, and I therefore hope that the bill will pass as well.
John Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's Get Ready for Brexit campaign looks lovely, but it doesn't answer the question, get ready for what? Deal, no deal, what deal? And businesses have a pandemic to deal with. So will he agree, does he admit, that the combination of Brexit shambles with the absence of proper support for small businesses facing COVID-19 measures and the total exclusion of so many businesses altogether from support means that this government is totally letting down small businesses in the North East and across the country?
It probably won't surprise the honourable lady to say I don't agree with that. I think it is the case that when it comes to Brexit transition, we know that because we're leaving the single market and the customs union, whether or not we secure a free trade agreement, much of what most businesses need to do is broadly the same. And of course, a government stands ready to help businesses to adjust. But the honourable lady knows that having lived and worked in Newcastle in the past, the fate and the future of businesses in the North East is very dear to me. It's striking how many businesses in the North East, those who work for them, voted Conservative just 12 months ago, which is why Conservative MPs in Blythe Valley, in Bishop Auckland, in Redcar, and of course across the North East are standing up I'll mention more constituencies if she likes as well. More constituencies the Conservatives won. North West Durham, Consett, of course, now a Conservative constituency. Sedgefield with Spennymoor, now a Conservative constituency. Anyway, as the Honourable Lady and indeed the House knows, the North East is Tory, and that's because we stand up for workers.
Richard Drax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I remind the members of the opposite benches that we all want a deal. There's no one on this side that does not want a deal, but it must be a fair deal and one that respects the UK's integrity. On that point, my right honourable friend has said to us on many occasions that we must leave together. In answering questions to my two right honourable friends from North Somerset and Harwich, he said, unless I'm incorrect, that EU law will apply in Northern Ireland, as will the European Court of Justice. Now, we've gone to all this effort to be free of these structures. Can you confirm that I've got it wrong, or he's got it wrong, one or the other?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend never gets it wrong. He is right. It's there in the withdrawal agreement and in the protocol that we accept the acquis in a specific number of areas in Northern Ireland, that is part of the withdrawal agreement which was signed before the general election, which was in the Conservative manifesto, and which many, though not all, members of this House supported. Now, of course, there were some concerns, understandable concerns, that the way in which the protocol would apply would mean that we would face tariffs and other restrictions. The agreement that we've concluded means that won't be the case, and the UK will leave, and Northern Ireland will be capable of benefiting from trade deals that we do as a result of Brexit, and also will be outside the common agricultural policy, and also it will benefit from the Australian-style points-based immigration system which applies across the UK.
Owen Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the Minister is telling Northern Ireland they can have the best of both worlds, he's using the same reasoning to tell Scotland to shut up and get back in your box, all while claiming any negative impacts are not actually Brexit related. Is it now the case that the Minister's become the government's very own Bart Simpson, causing chaos and presenting their agenda regardless of costs while claiming, I didn't do it, nobody saw me do it, you can't prove anything?
Minister.
Well, I've always thought that the Simpsons character I most remembered was Groundkeeper Willie, actually, because, as you know, he's an Aberdonian. Well, I'm not sure what his position is on independence, but he's certainly, as Jannies go, he's one of the best. But anyway, to the honourable gentleman's particular point, it is the case that Scotland does have the best of both worlds. It has a devolved administration in Holyrood and representation by great MPs like himself here in Westminster.
We go to John Barron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I commend my right honourable friend for his role and very much welcome this agreement. It is good news that the EU has compromised. Otherwise, its previous position on everything from unlimited checks and export declarations could have choked trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. However, given this agreement will add an impetus, if you like, to the wider trade talks, will he commend the Prime Minister for not making last-minute compromises just to get a trade deal over the line? Because he has the support of the Conservative Party should he decide to walk away and trade on Australia and Canada terms. After all, a trade deal is for keeps, not just for Christmas.
My right honourable friend is absolutely right, and the points he made, like the points that Sir Edward Lee made earlier, reinforce the fact that the Conservative Party is united behind the Prime Minister, willing him to get a deal, but also ready to accept that if we cannot get the deal that we want, that we will not accept a deal at any price. That has to be the right way forward.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 95% of Cumbrian farm exports are to the single market, so our farmers need unfettered access to that market too. His friend, the DEFRA Secretary, at the weekend said that British farmers would find tariffs with the EU, I quote, unmanageable. Now, if you add that to the fact that deal or no deal, in 3 weeks' time, British farmers, English farmers, will see huge uncompensated cuts in their incomes begin, we risk the loss of hundreds of family farms in the lakes and the dales and elsewhere. Does he agree with me that a country that cannot feed itself has no sovereignty?
Minister.
Well, The Right Honourable Gentleman makes several very important points. The first is that we absolutely do need to support upland farmers, not just in his own beautiful constituency and in Cumbria, but across the United Kingdom. And it is the case that sustainable livestock farming is the only way in which we can make sure that we have agriculture in the future in upland and grassland areas such as the one that he represents. The second thing is, yes, there is a prospect of tariffs if we don't secure a free trade agreement, which is why we do need to have support systems in place for those. Third point I would make is that the new system of support that we're giving to farmers combines not just support for small farmers, but also support for the climate change and environmental goals that we both share, and I think it's important that we do reform the Common Agricultural Policy in that way. But I look forward to continuing to work with him because I know that his commitment to rural England and to our farmers is resolute.
Now we go to Flick Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the principle that exit summary declarations for goods from Northern Ireland to the rest of the UK will not be required? But does my right honourable friend agree that while it's reasonable for EU authorities to supervise the application of the protocol in Northern Ireland, can he assure me that all processes in UK sovereign territory will be carried out by UK authorities?
Minister.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and it is UK authorities carrying out our procedures in our territory under our laws.
Lloyd Russell-Moyle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This was the never-ending story, and it seems a bit like it's just turning into a never-ending nightmare for businesses who have been told not of a settled situation, but have been told that the can is going to be kicked down the road for 3 to 6 months. Is it not time to be honest with the British people and say this will never end, negotiations will continue forever because this government is just not capable in securing decent deals that are settled wills with the European Union?
Minister.
Well, I think, and I absolutely take the point that the honourable gentleman is making, but I think it is the case that we will be negotiating in the future new free trade deals, as it happens, with other countries outside the European Union, which we couldn't have negotiated inside the European Union. These negotiations are led by my brilliant colleague, the President of the Board of Trade. She secured deals, for example, with Japan, even better than that which we had in the EU. So negotiating going on is what trade secretaries do, and we're lucky to have the best in the world.
Mark Pawsey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome my honourable friend's statement in which he spoke of the importance of providing clarity for business. Can he confirm that clarity will include ensuring that manufacturers from across the UK will continue to be able to trade freely with a market of 500 million consumers who are on our doorstep?
Well, my honourable friend makes an important point, and he's been a consistently strong and coherent voice for manufacturing, not just in his own native West Midlands, but across the United Kingdom. And one of the things that we do want to secure is a free trade agreement, which ensures that our manufacturing and advanced manufacturing sector can continue to sell into a market on our doorstep.
Emmanuel Buck is not here. Robin Miller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I too welcome this package and what it means for business, for peace and for our union. And dare I say that news of tariff-free lamb comes close to being glad tidings for the shepherds on the hillsides above Aberconway this Christmas time. But lest we get lost in that kind of detail, can my right honourable friend just confirm that there's nothing in this agreement which compromises the integrity of either our sovereignty or the union?
Minister.
No, my honourable friend is absolutely right. This House remains sovereign, and it is also the case that the territorial and the political integrity of the United Kingdom remains robust.
Sammy Wilson.
This party opposed the protocol and warned about all of the problems which the Minister is now having to address. And whilst we welcome the changes which we made today, nevertheless, the real test will be in how these measures work on the ground rather than the spin we get in this House. And I just want to ask the Minister, first of all, as far as EU officials are concerned, is it not a fact that whilst they will not carry out the searches and the investigations, they will be able to direct UK officials on the ground, and under Article 5 of the protocol, UK officials will have to carry out their demands. And the Irish Government is now spinning that the 6-month period is simply to allow supermarkets in Northern Ireland to source their products from the Irish Republic. Does he believe that we have gained back sovereignty if we're allowing EU officials to direct our officials and other governments to tell us where we can get our food from?
Minister.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman because, as he quite rightly points out, there were a number of very principled opponents of the whole idea of the protocol itself, and he and his colleagues in his party laid out some of their concerns in a very cogent fashion. In the end, this House of Commons decided that the protocol as part of the withdrawal agreement was the right way to proceed, but as he quite rightly pointed out, it was important that a number of difficult questions were addressed. And he's also absolutely right that the proof will be in the implementation on the ground. On the two specific areas that he mentions, it is the case that the limited number, I think it's probably no more than 24 at most, of EU officials who will come into Northern Ireland will be working alongside UK officials, and it will be the UK officials who will be in the lead there, but we want to provide the EU with assurance. On the matter of where goods are sourced from, I can't think of any better place for goods in Northern Ireland supermarkets to be sourced from than Northern Ireland itself. And I don't think it's the case, wonderful though produce in the Republic of Ireland is, that there is any better producer. The gentleman over there asks about bananas. I think he was referring, of course, to SNP policy on trade. But when it comes to pork products, there's nothing better than an Ulster fry.
Adam O'Freely.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank you for your kindness towards, and the Right Honourable Member for his kindness towards my many children who've been here on many occasions. And my 9-year-old Atticus said to me when he just got sight of the question I was going to ask today, "But Dad, the answer to that question is so obvious." So I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, despite our desire for a goods trade deal with the European Union, does my Right Honourable friend agree that we must never again cede control of our borders or coastal waters to a foreign power?
Minister.
Well, I knew that my honourable friend was a great dad because his son absolutely hits the nail on the head in saying that the answer to that question is obvious. No, we absolutely should not cede that control. Very good question. Answer's clear. Excellent son. Brilliant dad.
Now we go to Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The vehicle industry has consistently warned that a no-deal Brexit risks the future of UK plants and skilled unionised jobs. Without a deal, Luton-made Vauxhall vans could face a tariff of 22%. Coupled with COVID cuts to our council and no support for our aviation industry, for Luton, no deal would make this a job-killing government. With just 22 days to go before the end of the transition period, can he guarantee there will be no tariffs on vans and cars made in this country?
Minister.
Well, the automobile sector is important, not just in Luton, where there are so many skilled people producing fantastic products, but across the UK. And of course, if we secure a free trade agreement, it will be a zero tariff, zero quota agreement. If we don't secure that agreement, then it will be the case that there will be tariffs, but there will also be tariffs on automobiles coming into the UK, and that will have an impact, obviously, on industry in the EU.
We are only halfway through the call list, and it would be best if I can manage to get everybody who wants to ask a question on this very important subject in to ask such a question. I see that I have some agreement from my right honourable friend who's quite far down the list. Therefore, I must insist on having questions. Just questions, short questions, not great big statements. We all know what's already happened. Let's just have the questions for the Minister so that we can then just have answers from the Minister. Julian Smith.
I welcome this agreement and thank him and his civil service team for getting us to this stage. But could I urge him to spend some time with the PUL community who retain concerns about the detail? I suggest Michaela's Kitchen on the Shankhill Road is the best place to do that engagement. But also, could he spend some time now with the nationalist community, unaligned voters, and those passionate supporters of the European Union in Northern Ireland to demonstrate to them that the practical approach he and the EU have taken on this protocol can now be replicated on issues like climate change, health, jobs and the future of all people across the island of Ireland?
Minister.
My right honourable friend is absolutely right. There is more work to do, and I always enjoy any opportunity to be in Northern Ireland with my right honourable friend, the Northern Ireland Secretary of State. He was an outstanding Secretary of State in Northern Ireland, and he makes a series of very important points that I take completely to heart.
Matt Western.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honda, of course, have just announced they've had to pause their production due to problems in getting components through ports. Does the Secretary of State suggest that the failings of Honda to get these parts is down entirely to them, or does the government share some of the blame?
No, I don't think it's Honda's case. I think it is the case that there is a global problem with container traffic, and that point's been well made by those who are leading our major ports.
James Sunderland.
Madam Deputy Speaker, could I please ask my right honourable friend whether the recent removal of clauses from the Internal Market Bill serves as an indicator or a sweetener to the European Union that early white smoke might be forthcoming on a wider trade deal?
Minister.
We made that decision as a government because we believed that we'd satisfied all of our aims in the discussions on the protocol. It was a sovereign decision, but I hope that it will help to ensure that we do get an FTA.
Joanna Cherry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the withdrawal of clauses 44, 45 and 47 of the Internal Market Bill. But can the Chancellor tell me, has he any plans to carry out an assessment of the impact of the threats to breach a recently signed treaty on the United Kingdom's international standing and the UK's ability to enter into future agreements, given that it's now known across the world that the United Kingdom is prepared to break its word in order to get its way?
Minister.
I think the Right Honourable and Learned Lady will know that since we introduced those clauses in the UK Internal Market Bill, we succeeded in signing any number of trade agreements with other countries, and I think that's because the reputation of the UK continues to stand high.
Now we go to Harlow, to Rob Halfon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My right honourable friend has played a blinder. But could I ask him, given that the EU withdrawal means that British government procurement will no longer be subject to OJ-EU rules, what concrete steps will my right honourable friend take to ensure that Northern Ireland companies and businesses across Great Britain that wish to procure contracts with government can only do so if they employ a significant number of apprentices?
Minister.
Very important point by Chairman of the Select Committee. My honourable friend Lord Agnew will be bringing forward a paper on procurement reform shortly, which will show exactly how we can achieve the ambition that he has so consistently and brilliantly put forward for apprenticeships.
Carrie McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following on from the question that my honourable friend for Warwick Leamington asked about the situation with Honda, given the chaos at ports is already occurring before the end of the transition period, and I understand this is because people are stockpiling because they're so worried about what will happen next year, can he confidently say that the perfect storm of Christmas, Brexit stockpiling, COVID restrictions and the new customs regime will not lead to significant disruption come January?
Minister.
No, it is a very fair point. There are a number of things which are coming together this Christmas, and it's helpful that she contextualises the fact that the situation that we have with containers is as a result of many factors. We're doing everything we can in order to ensure that trade continues to flow freely, but as she quite rightly points out, there are a number of factors with which all governments are having to grapple.
Joe Gideon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With clauses 44, 45 and 47 of the UK Internal Market Bill now withdrawn, can my right honourable friend reassure the House that seamless trade between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK will continue, despite any suggestion from the European Union to interpret the withdrawal agreement in such a way as to prevent our internal market, which has functioned for centuries?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. I should stress that there were some in the EU who did have precisely that agenda, but Vice President Maroš Šefčovič has done a great job in making sure that this is an arrangement that works for everyone. So it will continue to be the case that the superb ceramic products that are made in her constituency will continue to flow onto tables in Belfast, Ballymena, Strabane and Derry, Londonderry.
Bill Esterson.
Does the Minister regret the fact that the Government abolished the expert trade advisory groups which were set up to advise the Government on customs and continuity in trade, They were disbanded in July because the members, or some of the members, refused to sign non-disclosure agreements. Wouldn't it have made more sense to keep the trade advisory groups going to help avoid the disruption we've been hearing about at the ports and the delays in essential food and manufacturing parts which are being widely reported today?
Minister.
Well, that's all news to me, but maybe he has a point, I don't know.
Now we go to Dame Cheryl Gillan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I commend my right honourable friend and also the Vice President for reaching an amicable and sensible agreement? And can I wish the Prime Minister well and hope that neither of the two diners tonight get indigestion and also achieve an acceptable deal, both for the EU, but in particular our own country. At the end of last month, Jim Hara told the Public Accounts Committee that Customs is concentrating on 7 key IT systems that need to be changed or built from new to enable GB EU trade to continue and to enable us to comply particularly with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Could my right honourable friend update me on those systems? Will they be completed before the end of the transition period?
Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. There are a number of systems, both the Trader Support Service, TSS, the Movement Assistance Scheme, MAS, the Goods Vehicle Management Scheme, GVMS, and CDS, which is the new replacement for Chief in HMRC. That's quite a lot of acronyms. A lot of work has gone into making sure that we will be ready. Some of it is close to the wire, but I'm confident that everything will be in place.
Jonathan Edwards.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Madam Deputy Speaker. From the 1st of January onwards, if he was a business owner primarily exporting to the EU, would he prefer to be located in Northern Ireland or Wales?
Minister.
Well, that is the most difficult question I've ever faced in this House. Because I love Northern Ireland and I love Wales as well. And there are all sorts of advantages of being located in either jurisdiction. I suspect my choice would be made even more difficult if I had to choose between, say, Carmarthenshire or North Armagh. Forgive me, Northampton. Two uniquely beautiful parts of the United Kingdom. Do you know what? It's Sophie's choice in business terms. So wherever you're located in the United Kingdom, you benefit from having a strong government determined to ensure that this country can take advantage of global opportunities.
David Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can my right honourable friend say if the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will continue to prevail in relation to the Northern Ireland Protocol? And if that is the case, explain how that state of affairs is compatible with the restoration of United Kingdom sovereignty.
Minister.
It is the case that in the withdrawal agreement that we concluded before the last election, and which this House voted on, not every member, of course, supported it, but a majority did. We made it clear that within the Northern Ireland Protocol there would be a limited portion of the acquis relating to goods in the single market that would apply in Northern Ireland. It was the aim of this House and the aim of this government to ensure that we could reach a satisfactory arrangement on the protocol in line with the principles that we laid out in the command paper. That's what we have done, and that upholds the territorial integrity of the United Kingdom and the ability of every citizen of the UK to benefit from all of the opportunities that Brexit provides.
Jeff Smith.
Thank you. Would the Minister comment on the UK Government's commitment to the Peace Plus programme in the period ahead, which, as he will know, has played such an important role in underpinning peace and reconciliation in Northern Ireland?
Minister.
We're totally committed, and the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland will be saying more about that in coming days.
Simon Fell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can my right honourable friend reassure me that in tonight's negotiations and the ongoing negotiations with the EU, the Prime Minister and his team will remember just how important securing a deal will be to Cumbrian farmers and indeed farmers across all 4 nations?
Minister.
Absolutely. For Cumbrian farmers and also for manufacturers in Barrow, we will be doing everything we can to get the best possible set of arrangements.
Dr. Andrew Murison.
The temporary food waiver for trusted traders is very much to be welcomed, and my right honourable friend is to be congratulated for securing it. But can I draw him a little bit on the detail for what will then follow, because businesses need certainty, and what he has had to say will of course be very welcome to the big supermarkets, but smaller operators, small shops and street traders on who the Great Ulster Fry depends so much will still be left in a level of uncertainty, particularly if they're not signed up to Trusted Trader. Can he say to what extent the Trusted Trader scheme will extend to small operators of that sort?
Well, my right honourable friend, who was an outstanding Northern Ireland minister, is absolutely right, and we'll be going into more detail once the Joint Committee concludes on exactly how we can safeguard the interests of small and medium-sized enterprises as well, and it will be the case that we'll be notifying the Commission of those businesses that do need to take advantage of the grace period that we've got.
Alison Thewlis. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. RTE reports on the derogation for sausages and chilled meats and unfrozen prepared meals, and notes that once a derogation period is elapsed, Northern supermarkets will have to source such products locally or from the south. Can he explain why it's acceptable to him to disadvantage Scotland in such a way and our food exporters? And isn't it just another example of why Scotland would be better off as an independent nation state within the EU?
Hear, hear.
Well, if Scotland were an independent nation-state, then it would face trade barriers at Berwick, at Cairn Rhine. It would be the case that by leaving the European Union, Scotland would be. I'm just pointing out the inevitable consequences of the course which the Honourable Lady has set her heart on, which is making sure that if Scotland did become independent, it would face tariff and regulatory barriers to access its biggest market, which is the rest of the UK. She asks why. That is the inevitable consequence of independence, alongside the abandonment of the pound sterling, a re-entry into the common fisheries policy. It's a terrible course to go on, and because I admire the Honourable Lady so much, I hope that she will recognise that the future of her Glasgow constituents is better secured in the United Kingdom than going down the perilous path to separation that the SNP have argued for like a pied piper for many decades.
Steve Double.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the pragmatic approach that has been taken in reaching this agreement that respects the sovereignty and independence of the UK as we leave the EU, whilst also recognising the need for the EU to protect their single market. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that it's this same pragmatism that now needs to be applied to a trade deal whilst respecting those same principles? And would he join me in wishing the Prime Minister well at his dinner tonight?
I absolutely do, and I also hope that on the EU side we see something of the same pragmatism that we've seen in this particular area.
Stephen Timms.
Deputy Speaker, if there's no data adequacy agreement by the end of this month, what's his current estimate of the legal and admin costs to business for putting in place the new contractual clauses they'll have to introduce in order to continue to exchange data with their European partners?
It's a very important question. I don't have an exact estimate of what the standard contractual clauses costs would be, but it is the case that because we're compliant with GDPR at the moment, I see no reason why data adequacy should not be granted.
Now we go to Sir David Evanet.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome my right honourable friend's statement today and congratulate him on his hard work in achieving this agreement. Can he confirm that this is a pragmatic and sensible approach to protect Northern Ireland's place in the UK's customs territory?
Absolutely. My honourable friend has been a consistent champion for business and enterprise in all his years in this House, and he's absolutely right. This pragmatic approach works for businesses in his constituency and in Northern Ireland.
Bradshaw.
Will he correct his claim on the Today programme this morning that we will continue to benefit from free healthcare if we visit the rest of Europe after January the 1st in the event of no deal, and that our students will continue to benefit from Erasmus programmes in the event of no deal?
Well, it is the case that students who are currently engaged on Erasmus programmes will continue to be part of them until the end of that academic course. And it is also the case that UK citizens who've been living in EU countries are covered by the withdrawal agreement rights, which we all voted on. I think he actually voted against, but nevertheless, we protected their rights.
Order! 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 Sir Desmond Swain.
I'm grateful to him for suggesting the lucrative opportunity of exporting conflict diamonds, but just how burdensome will the additional paperwork be of which he spoke?
Given that there is very, very little trade that I'm aware of in conflict diamonds from Northern Ireland to Great Britain, and if anything, even smaller trade in, for example, endangered species products like tiger skins, I suspect that the bureaucratic burden will be so small as to be almost invisible to the naked eye.
Chris Bryant.
The mind boggles. I'm all for pragmatism because I think that's the best way that we can sort out a deal that works for Welsh lamb farmers and, for that matter, for the British car manufacturers and all the rest of it. But I want to ask him about the foreign policy elements because, on a pragmatic basis, we've always done rather well out of persuading other countries in Europe that they should adopt, for instance, sanctions against Putin, and we've tried to get people on board with our policy around Hong Kong. How are we going to be able to make sure that we can do that in the future if we've poisoned the well by a situation where we don't have any long-lasting trade deal at the end of today or the end of the week?
The right honourable gentleman does make an important point, and obviously it would be in our interest to secure a deal, but not at any price. One thing that I would say is that he's been a consistent champion for a tougher approach towards Russia and an advocate for the Magnitsky sanctions. It was the case that the Foreign Secretary also was a consistent champion for that. We adopted them. The EU followed. There's no criticism of the EU, but it is the case that we can continue to have influence. But obviously, if we do have a satisfactory arrangement with the EU, that would work for everyone.
Andrew Griffith.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that today's welcome announcement is the perfect combination of principle and pragmatism, an approach to negotiations that our businessmen take every day, that's going to serve them well as we embrace the future, and that only on that side of the House they seem to find exceptional?
Well, my honourable friend has had a brilliant business career, and he's absolutely right. You need to negotiate toughly, be prepared to be flexible in certain circumstances, but know ultimately what you want. And as we heard from the Leader of the Opposition earlier today, I'm afraid when it comes to Brexit, we still don't know what Labour want.
Patrick Grady.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm just wondering if Brexit is shaping up to be such a success. Why is it that 4.5 years after the referendum, no other European country is seeking to follow the UK out the door? Why aren't they looking at these deals that are being negotiated with envy and thinking that they want a piece of the action? Whereas, in fact, what's happening is that countries like Scotland are looking at the European Union and deciding that's where they want their future to be. It's the United Kingdom that's being left isolated.
What a remarkable rewriting of history. I think it's the case. Just yesterday I was watching CNN, and I saw an amazing man, 91-year-old gentleman called Martin Kenyon, one of the first people in the world to be vaccinated. And he was vaccinated here in the United Kingdom, and it's because of the United Kingdom's superb regulatory work, because of our vaccines task force, because of our NHS, because of our health secretary, that the first people in the world to be vaccinated were here in the United Kingdom. And there are vaccines in Scotland. There's vaccines in Scotland, thanks to the UK, and the rest of the world's looking on in admiration at our British NHS. And I think on today of all days, it would be nice, and to be fair, lots of Scottish nationalist ministers have made this point, that the UK government has been working in the interests of everyone, and people have been looking at Britain and saying, that's great.
Bob Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As someone that's commanded, on and off, a hard checkpoint on the A5 between South Tyrone and County Monaghan for up to 2 years, where we had chicanes, sangers and obstacles, can my right honourable friend assure me that on the 1st of January there'll be no sign of that hard checkpoint left?
Well, my honourable friend, like so many who served with distinction in Northern Ireland, contributed to ending terrorism. These were hard-won gains, and there will certainly be no return to physical infrastructure of the kind that he had to negotiate when he so bravely served his country.
Vera Hobhouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can he give me an indication when we will finish negotiating and debating Brexit, given that 10 months on from getting Brexit done, we are still debating the same issues, and he himself said in a statement today further details will be worked through in the month ahead.
Well, far be it from me to prevent Liberal Democrats talking about whatever they wish to talk about. It is the case, I recall, that the very first person, I think, in this House to argue for an in-out referendum was the former member for Sheffield Hallam, the former Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg. And it's still the case that people in the Liberal Democrats are calling for referendums. I'm a traditionalist. I love the fact that the Liberal Democrats are consistent in their determination to ensure that however many referendums we have, we must have more. I'm sure that Gladstone, Grey, Harcourt and Chamberlain would all salute the determination of the Liberal Democrats to stay true to their tradition, and whenever everyone else has settled the question, to say, let's reopen it.
Greg Smith. Madam Deputy Speaker, I very much congratulate my right honourable friend on securing this agreement. It is absolutely right that it must only be UK authorities that perform any checks. When it comes to the EU authorities supervising or observing, can he confirm to the House that they will be paying for that and they do not expect UK taxpayers to pick up the bill for their presence?
That is absolutely the case. The EU will be paying for it, and I hope that while people from the EU's agencies are in Northern Ireland, that they take advantage of Northern Ireland's wonderful hospitality as well.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the DUP have been consistent and remain consistent that there must be no border down the Irish Sea. Can the Chancellor give me an assurance that in July 2021, the year that we mark the centenary of the Union, the good people of Strangford will have no impediment placed on them by Brussels to buying foodstuffs from fellow British citizens in England, Scotland and Wales?
Absolutely. The citizens of the beautiful Ards Peninsula will continue to enjoy the rights that we uphold as shared UK citizens.
Steve Bryan.
Thank you. My constituents will be very joyed at the changes to the Internal Market Bill, as my right honourable friend knows. The Joint Committee has clearly done its job, and shown rumours of compromise demise are greatly overstated. Now, the British Government have moved and shown much seasonal goodwill, so can I ask my right honourable friend if he agrees that this announcement only truly works for us all if it's followed by good news on the wider EU-UK trade deal imminently?
This deal works in its own right. It shows the virtue of principle and pragmatism allied, but it's also the case that if we do secure a free trade agreement, that would be an additional helpful bonus.
And finally, we go to Simon Hall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank and congratulate my right honourable friend for arriving at the position that he has. The Good Friday Agreement is protected, the Union has been secured, and more importantly, the rule of law upheld. Can I seek his assurance that during the grace period, he and ministerial colleagues provide strong and active support to businesses of all sizes in both GB and Northern Ireland to ensure that they are able to meet the challenges of a new regime and to do so successfully?
Well, my honourable friend makes an absolutely critical point, and can I thank him and the Select Committee he chairs for the rigorous scrutiny that they've applied throughout this process, which has ensured that the government has been kept up to the mark. And he's absolutely right that concluding this agreement is just one step. We need to continue to support businesses in Northern Ireland, large and small, as they face the challenges but also take advantage of the opportunities ahead.
Thank you. I will now suspend the House for 3 minutes in order to allow members to leave safely and compliantly and to allow other members to come in. Order!